Hi guys, welcome to another video in this channel. My name is Abraham Leal, and today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, which is copyright, trademark, how to commercialize your work and stuff like that. Now, before we begin and before you continue with this video, I need to make a super huge disclaimer, and the disclaimer is going to be on the description as well. I am not a lawyer, okay? I'm just an artist, and the things that I'm going to share with you are the things that have been taught to me and that I've been investigating throughout my years as an artist, and hopefully this information is useful to you. But if you're going to be doing any important big move, any important international commercialization of your content or whatever, make sure you check with the proper legal person so you are completely covered. Okay, now let's get to it. So the first thing you need to understand, or that we need to understand, are the differences between a trademark, patent, and copyright, which are the terms that we're mostly going to be using when talking about the things that we design or that we create. Okay, now I'm going to start first with patent because we're actually going to not use it. Patent is anything, as you can see here, this is from the United States Patent and Trademark Office, so this is as official as it gets. And it's any sort of creation that has to do with chemical compositions, drugs, mechanical processes, complex machinery, or designs that are going to be new, unique, and usable in some type of industry. So if you're, for instance, designing a chair and you want to patent the design of that chair, you can do that, okay? You patent, and no one else is allowed to use the specific design for your chair because you have the patent, the dimensions, everything, okay? Now, for us as artists, we're usually going to be on this other column right here, which is the copyright side of things. So copyright is, as the name implies, the right that we have to copy our work, or whoever has the right to copy the work. So as you can see right here, artistic, literary, or intellectual creator works such as novels, music, movies, software, code, photographs, and paintings. In our case, renderers, animations, movies, games, all of the things fall into this sort of stuff. And as you can see, it includes paper, canvas, film, or digital format. So a JPEG that I create, a render that I create, I'm going to show you something real quick, like this guy right here, this ADEX helmet that we did last year. That is an image that I created. It's an original design by me. There's no other, of course there's influence, right? But it's completely done by me. So I, Abraham, own the copyright to this particular one. If you were to replicate this thing and start selling it, then you could get sued by me because you are using something that is not yours. I created the element, or I created the thing, so I own the copyright. Now, technically, when you create something, you should register it, especially if you're going to be doing any sort of business with it. But not everyone does it. However, even if it's not properly filed with the United States patent or your country's specific copyright thing, just due to the fact that you're the creator gives you some rights. So if it eventually goes to a trial and you can prove that you were the original creator, and you can prove that it is feasible, or it's possible for that someone else has copied your work, then you win, and they have to pay you for the use of your stuff. Okay, so that's copyright. Now, trademark is another one that's really interesting because copyright has the interesting particularity that it ends. It has a deadline. So I think in the United States, it's 100 years after the person creates the work, or after the person dies, or after the work is created, that it goes into what we commonly known as public domain. So thanks to public domain, we have access to a lot of different characters, stories, and things that we can use to create new stuff. For instance, Snow White, right? We all know Snow White, the story about this girl, the forest, the apple, the dwarfs, and stuff. Well, Snow White is part of the public domain because the story of Snow White was created a long time ago. And thanks to that, we can use the character of Snow White. However, you cannot use, and this is very important, you cannot use the design that Disney did, because this design, it's not copyrighted, it's trademarked, okay? And trademark does not expire. So as long as the company is still using the specific design or the specific interpretation of the concept, that trademark does not end. Okay, and this is especially important because imagine that a company a different company wants to do a movie called Snow White, and they decide to dress her princess or their princess with blue, yellow, red highlights, the bow. It would make it difficult for consumers to understand which one is the real Disney one and which one is the fake one, right? So that's why trademark is so important. And that's why you've seen several films. I remember Snow White film, real. There was This one, the what was it, Snow White and the Huntsman, right? So this film came out like what, 10 years ago, and they can use the concept of Snow White, no problem. But as you can see, the design of Snow White, the design of the Queen, the design of everyone in the movie cannot match and should not match the design that Disney did. Okay, very, very important distinction between Trademark and Snow White. So now let's go to some practical examples about how it affects us as artists. If you're a student and you go online and you're like, I want to use a character, so I'm going to look for character, concept art, and I want to do a new character, and you find one that you like this one right here. You're just like, ooh, I really like this character right here. Okay, well, this is not an image that you created. This is not your image. You found it on Google. And a lot of us think that just because we find it on Google, it's completely free. And that's not entirely true. There's a lot of images in the internet that are free. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But most of them actually have an owner. In this case, I can see that Shardbound and Spirit Walk Games probably own the copyright to this character right here. Okay? Now, if I want to do this character for my portfolio, which is considered an educational or non-commercial use, you fall into a category that is sometimes referred to as fair use. You can use things that are not yours, that you don't have the copyright for, as long as you use them for specific purposes. So for instance, I could teach a class where I explain why this design right here works and is really good. And even though it's not my design, I'm using it as an example to explain why the design is good, okay? I could use this as a point of reference, as again, educational purposes, or as long as it's non-commercial, as long as you're not making money or selling the thing that you're doing, you should be perfectly fine. Now, here's where we start getting into the gray area, okay? Each company and each industry has their own rules. So some of you might be like, okay, what about this? What if I create a 3D model of this character and I upload the 3D model for 3D printing? Maybe I'm a huge fan of this game and I want like a collectible of this character and I just give it away for free. It's non-commercial, so I should be fine, right? Well, it depends. And again, that's why I'm saying I'm not a lawyer, and you should always check everything that you can to make sure that you're not falling into any sort of issues. Because when you do that, you are using someone else's product, someone else's character for your own benefit. And that's sort of like where the gray line is. That's a lot of like fan art stuff, a lot of self-publish, a lot of fan fiction, that it falls into that sort of like gray area where you could get into problems. Okay, so that's why it's always, if you want to be completely safe, always create original stuff, create your own stuff. Like if you really like this character, use this character as an inspiration, but create your own. That's called derivative. You create something, you use certain things, certain influence, maybe even certain like small shapes and stuff. You don't copy anything, you don't trace anything, but you use it as an inspiration and you create a similar character. And if you do that, then you're perfectly fine, or you should be perfectly fine. Now, let's talk about something called Creative Commons, because in the last couple of weeks, there's been a huge thing in the D&D file, in the D&D world about like the OGL and stuff like that. I'm not an expert in that, so I'm not gonna delve into it. But the end of the latest story is that Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast released this document, which is called the SRD OGL version 1.1. under Creative Commons. So Creative Commons is a specific type of license that you will sometimes find in images, in music, in pictures, in videos, stuff like that. And when it's under Creative Commons, you need to check what type of Creative Commons license it has, because there's like rules for specific ones. And depending on which one it has, you're going to be able to use that content even though you don't own the copyright, okay? You're not getting a copyright. It's kind of like if the creator is sharing with you that specific thing. So again, let's take a quick, like a real life scenario. We have here Dungeons and Dragons, and again, they released the SRD, which is like this huge document. And if we go to, I believe there's like a monster section right here. Where is it? Is it down here? There we go, here. So all of these monsters that are here on the SRD, this document is now on the again, on the Creative Commons license. So I, Abraham, can go into this document and find something that I like, for instance, a young bronze dragon, and I can do my own young bronze dragon, okay? However, what I cannot do, and this is very important, if I look for bronze dragon, okay, this image of the bronze dragon, since the image of the bronze dragon is not on the SRD, is not on the document, then that means that this creator specifically is not sharing the design, is just sharing the information, okay? So I can create my own dragon as long as the design is different than the one that I'm seeing right here. Of course, it can have certain things. If I'm doing a bronze dragon, of course, the color is going to be bronze. They cannot trademark that. They cannot copyright that. But they can do other things. And this is how creators like this guy, Lord of the Print, get away with it. Because if you take a look at this and you compare it to the design, it's different enough, but at the same time, like equal enough that they can just get away with it. They can print this and they can call this bronze dragon and they're fine. However, again, going back into like real world examples, you cannot, for instance, say, okay, you know what? Like, I really like Thor. I personally really like Thor. It's like, I can't go online, look for references of Thor, and create a statue of Thor and just sell it around, because the design that I'm using for that character is not my design. It was Disney's design, right? Marvel's design. I would need to create my own design for Thor. And that's what they did at God of War. If you guys have played the latest God of War, they created their own version of Thor. So this is the Thor that you see in game, and as you can see, is fairly different than the one that we have inside of Disney. And there's a lot of different ones. Like if we look for Thor in Smite, right? Smite is this other game like League of Legends. The design for Thor inside of Smite is slightly different. So as long as your design is different from anything else that's out there, and this is where it gets tricky, because you can sometimes subconsciously or unconsciously fall and copy something that already exists. As long as your design is different and the character or idea or whatever you're using is on the public domain, or its copyright is free or shared, then you're welcome to do things, okay? Now, just to close this thing, because it's this very, very weird legal place, right? There are a lot of things that are already on the public domain, and there are a lot of things that are not copyrightable, okay? So, for instance, I cannot create a copyright for, I don't know, breath, right? Like, I cannot copyright a loaf of bread. So, even if you find, or if I want to create like a 3D model of a loaf of bread, I don't need to ask anyone's permission. I don't need to copyright a dragon. I don't need to copyright the copyright for a giant, okay? I don't need a copyright for a goblin or for an alien or like a space bug beetle or whatever. However, I cannot copy the designs that are already there. So if I look for a goblin, okay, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do a miniature version of a goblin to sell it in my mini factory for D&D players. Well, that's fine, but you cannot grab like this specific one and copy it perfectly. You can grab a lot of them and then create your own version of a goblin, and you're perfectly fine. But if you copy someone's specific depiction of a goblin, then you're gonna be in problems, okay, or in troubles. Again, like for instance, right now, Pathfinder. If we look Pathfinder Goblin, you're gonna see that their goblin is really distinct. The shape of the head, the size of the eyes, the proportions, all of that is really distinct and is really different, for instance, from World of Warcraft Goblin, right? So that's why you're never going to see World of Warcraft suing Pathfinder or Paizo or D&D, because the goblins that you see here are different than the goblins that you see here. They have, of course, similarities, but they're, again, a little bit different. Now, finally, because this was a question that was asked quite a bit about the tutorials that we record, and then I do want to clarify because I don't want anyone to be or get into trouble. When you follow a tutorial, you do not own the copyright to the tutorial, okay? The copyright to the tutorial is owned by whoever published the tutorial, in this case, ourselves. So all of the things that we publish as Nextut are owned by Nextut, okay? So if you follow a tutorial and you do, for instance, like, let me see, what do I have right here? Let's say, like this guy right here, okay? This is a perfect example. This is a little guide that I did last year, but it's not commercial. Like, we're not making any money out of this. It's just free, it's educational, and I did, of course, reference the artist who created the original concept, but I'm not gonna sell this because it's not my concept to sell. If I go to the artist and I'm like, hey, I wanna buy the concept from you, he could decide to buy the concept, we sign a little contract, and now the rights to that specific piece belong to me, and now I can sell the little guy. However, for personal use, if I want to 3D print like this guy and use it in my own like games and stuff, that's fine, personal use. If it's non-commercial, if it's educational, it's fine. It usually falls under fair use. You might get, I've had several students throughout my time as a teacher get messages from artists. They're like, hey, I saw that you used my concept. And first, if they don't credit them, that's a bad one. But sometimes they credit them and they still get a message like, I don't like that you're using my concept, so please take it out. In those cases, you of course take that one out because you don't want to get into any issues, but you can keep that as a private image, and then on a private portfolio, you can show that as part of what you're able to do, okay? Going back to our courses, for instance, the latest one that I just released, Thyros, that concept, of course, is copyright of next to. You can follow the tutorial, and if you get the exact same result that I got on the character, you can, of course, use that for your portfolio. However, you would be going into dangerous territories if you try to sell that model, because that model's design does not belong to you. And even though you did it, even though you did the whole 3D process, it's not a design or a copyright that belongs to you. And you could get into issues, okay? Which, again, I want everyone to be completely safe. So what's my advice? Okay, I understand now that I can't just like grab anything and use it. What can I do though? Well, as I mentioned, you could create your own. So if I look for Barbarian concept art, and I'm like, okay, I took Abraham's course, I finished my Barbarian, and my result was really close to his. How can I create one that I am gonna be able to sell, because I want to sell it as a collectible statue, or I want to do like a movie or a game about him? Well, in those cases, what you need to do is you go online, you gather as much references as you can, and you design your own character. Okay, you're like, okay, I really like this. For instance, you can be like, I really like Abraham's idea of like the skull on the shoulder. That's fine, but what if we change that to a dragon skull instead? So maybe yours is going to be a dragon skull. Okay, that's already something that's getting different. And then you're like, I like the horns, but maybe mine is going to have a different tiefling horns. His horns are going to be more like this guy right here, like ram horses. That's fine. Maybe the beard, he's not going to have beard and he's going to have a mohawk. Okay, perfect. And as you start getting away and away from the original concept, you can use the exact same techniques, which is the main purpose of the courses. You can use the exact same techniques, but as long as the design is different, you're going to be safe. Okay? So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. I know it's a really, really like complicated topic. And again, just final disclosure before we finish the video. If you're ever in a position where you need to like think and see all of these things, go with a lawyer. Go with an IP lawyer, someone who knows how this works, because they're going to be able to guide you a little bit better. But usually, if you want to keep it completely safe or play it completely safe, do original things. Gather as much reference as you can, but do not copy. Use those as inspiration and create your own version, okay? If you do that, then I would say 99% of the times you're going to be fine. Be careful about the big brands like big companies, Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, Blizzard, Riot. They're really jealous about their IP. So it's really complicated. It wouldn't be easy for me to go to or to do like a fan art statue of a League of Legends champion and then just starts like giving it away. Even if it's free, probably Riot would be like, hey, we don't like you doing that. We're going to send a cease and desist, or we're going to sue you, because by me doing that, it can devalue their brand. And that's not something that you want. What would be my advice? If that's something that you want to do, finish the sculpture. Don't sell it. Don't give it away. Send them an email. Hey, I did this. How can I get this out? How can I do it? Because a lot of companies, they do have this sort of like fan art policy or fan art like contracts and stuff that you can use to, again, give away, usually not sell things, so that you're completely protected. And yeah, that's it, guys. If you want to check any of the courses and learn how to do your own stuff from scratch, then I can recommend the Skillshare thing. I got one more announcement after this promo. Hey guys, Abraham here. I just wanted to remind you guys that we upload all of our courses to Skillshare. Skillshare is this amazing site where you can access a ton of different content to learn, improve, and grow as an artist. We have all of our courses available to watch and learn from right now in Skillshare. You can check the description down here, and Skillshare is offering 1 free month trial to their premium membership. With this membership, you're going to be able to access all of our courses and watch and learn all of the amazing things that we cover with all of the softwares. So, what are you waiting for? Check Skillshare down here below. So, a couple of announcements. We are having our portfolio review in the next 2 weeks. So it's, I think, February 11 and 12. It's going to be the portfolio review. You can check the link down here. Remember, you can create a small folder with your name, drop either the images or a link to your site, and I'll be happy to review your stuff once we get there. Also, the submission folder for the creature contest that we're going to have at the end of February is going to be open after the portfolio review. I'm going to do a video and everything explaining how things are going to work, and you're going to be able to submit it right there. If you haven't started working on that one, make sure to check the videos. There's a little bit of like tips and tricks that you can use, and yeah, we're getting close, so you should be finishing your high poly by now. And finally, our live streams on Monday are at 9 a.m. Mexico time, 8:30 p.m. India time. Make sure to tune in. Make sure to have like a little calendar, like alarm or something, or click subscribe and the little bell down here so that you get the notification as soon as we go live. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye-bye.